The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 4 rankings debate by position. You want the full list of complete rankings? Easy. Hit the description. The links are all down there. You can always find them both in the newsletter and on DraftKings Network. The Listeners League is now available. 3,500 spots. It filled on Thursday evening last week. There's over $50,000 of rake-free money in the pool on DraftKings. Only $15 to play. You can only play 3 entries, so there's a lot of, well, I wouldn't say free money available, but there probably is free money available because I think I came last, second last, and third last week with my team. So I encourage you to go do that right now. Smash the like and sub to Mayo Media Network while you are here. Jake Ciely on the line with me right now, enjoying the thumbnail for this show, I'm sure. But people complained about not being able to see the rankings on the screen while we were doing the show. And as I said, it would just take like an extra 5 hours of work to try to get those rankings back up. But we have found a compromise, Jake. We will see the rankings on the screen this week.
Oh, so do you want to pull out the blackboard and have to write them as we go?
It'll be like Woody Page on Around the Horn from like 15 years ago. I'm just going to have a little whiteboard behind me. I'm just going to turn around, mark them up here, and we'll be good
just
to go.
Scribble it. That would actually be pretty funny.
That sounds like a Nando idea. I'm not going to lie to you.
You know what you're setting yourself up for, right?
What?
Because you're going to have them live, and as we change them, it was like, then why does the graphic say this? Because you said this.
Well, you'll be able to see it in real time when I make the changes to the rankings.
Okay. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing here. Yeah, so you'll just see like the back end of my article as I just manipulate the rankings around and hit save on everything. Either way, hopefully that will quell some of the people's like vitriol towards the show. Because I think that making the rankings is a far better exercise than just like, here's my list, Jake, which 2 you don't agree with? Hey, we're going to move on. Now we can get together. We can collaborate to make these rankings. So let's do that. Let's start with running backs this week. And I actually want to start with the waiver wire. I mean, A-Chain is going to be, if he wasn't previously owned, he's the one that everyone is going to go for. But I did want to talk to you both short-term and long-term about him to kick things off. Like, how much do you think that his success was, A, they scored 70 points and Denver couldn't stop anything, and B, Jalen Waddle didn't play? That was an extra reason for him to be on the field.
Yeah, extra reason, Mostert got 7 targets and 7 receptions, caught all 7 because Tua was perfect throughout this like second quarter. It's obviously a factor. There's a lot of factors here. There's a factor that Jeff Wilson's coming back after next week, and I don't think that Jeff Wilson's going to step in as the lead and be like the major second option ahead of A-Chain. But let's remember last year when Jeff Wilson did come on, he did actually come in as the lead. All that being said, this is now what we've done before with Shanahanigans, as everybody loves to term it, and this is Mike McDaniel from that tree. He wants speed in the backfield. He wants multiple options. Part of it, like you said, was no Jalen Waddle. Part of it was just how easy they were having things going against the Broncos defense, which rage drops. Everybody was dropping the Broncos defense before the games were even over yesterday. I saw him over on Yahoo. But I would say A-Chain has to be a top pickup, like you said, if he wasn't already rostered, because we're already at the point where running backs are getting thin. We have a lot of questions starting in a week from now. Like, is Zach Moss still going to be relevant when Jonathan Taylor comes back? If Jonathan Taylor comes back, and then the injuries and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, but this is one of the cases, Pat, where I said this on All in Football. A lot of people, we joke about like, oh, you pick them off waivers and you immediately start throwing them out there in trades. And people are like, come on, you just got them off waivers. A-Chain, I think, is one you could do that with.
Well, he's exciting. That's why. Like,
exactly.
There's the whole public perception and excitement level about some of these guys. Like, a lot of people picked up Jerome Ford last week. And Jerome Ford was fine. He scored 2 touchdowns. He had a shitty rushing day against the league's toughest rush defense. Like, it's going to happen. He's going to be fine moving forward. He's the number 1 in that backfield. Or at worst, he's 1A until he loses the job, or maybe he doesn't. But no one's like super pumped about Jerome Ford. People are pumped about A-Chain. And oh my God, 70 points. The Dolphins offense. Like, if he has 3 fantasy points this week, I'm not going to be super stunned.
No, and I think that we could be headed down this field of like, we've done this before with the Dolphins. It was always chasing the production in previous years. It's like, this week it's Mostert, next week it's Jeff Wilson, next week it's Savon Ahmed stealing 2 touchdowns. And it's just this game, if you're always, it's why I was away from the Eagles backfield to start this season, which has cleared up, but all of a sudden we're now heading into, as we're doing this Monday Night Football, assuming Swift is going to be the lead, although Gainwell was the number 1 option in week 1. Would it shock anybody if it reverses back? And at least that's down to 2. anytime, again, Wilson's going to come in and introduce a third option. I want to avoid backfields where we're chasing our tail all year long, because it's going to be one of those ones where you're reluctant to, like, say, give that example you just said. Let's say next week Mostert comes out and is still fine, 15 points, 18 points, A-Chain gets 3. So Jeff Wilson comes back. You're not starting A-Chain. A-Chain goes off. And then it's like, do I start him? And then what if it's Jet? And then it's just a cyclical nonsense. So trade him away. That's what I'm saying. Trade him away. If you have an option to trade A-Chain away for Jerome Ford, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, as would I. And we have to remember that Salvin Ahmed didn't play in this game either. So there's another guy that just wasn't available to the Dolphins to force A-Chain onto the field. Now, he dominated, but everyone did on the Dolphins, unless it was Crimea River Craycraft, and that was no good.
No, there was really nobody else. Interesting enough, I was looking at, there's 3, including Tua. That's Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Raheem Mostert all inside the top 10 in scoring, and that's including all positions, including quarterbacks. And then that one game, to go back what the whole A-Chain conversation, the excitement, the shiny new toys, he's already 22nd in all of fantasy football off one game, including quarterbacks in the entire league.
Well, let's check out the injury report from week 3. This we can put up on the screen too, but if you do want to follow along every single morning that I update it is in the Mayo Media newsletter, so I recommend that you subscribe to that. Then you can just bookmark it and boom, check back on the link. You can also find this link in the rankings article as well. So Boston Scott is out for Monday Night Football. Aaron Jones obviously missed week number 3. They play on Thursday Night Football. I have him in the rankings, and we'll see how that goes, because you probably do not want to be starting A.J. Dillon because he might suck. That's just a real thing that could be happening. Gus Edwards had a concussion towards the end of the game. I do not have him in the rankings. I have him as out right now as we're doing this. Now, as Jake, I always say that if Gus Edwards is ruled in, I will update those rankings for everyone out there. So don't worry about that. ETN exited the game with a leg injury. They're also down by a bunch. I have him as in the rankings right now. I have Eckler, Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams on IR. Eckler, Jamal Williams, David Montgomery, Justice Hill, who's also on IR, is out for week 3. I have Salvin Ahmed as out for week 3. Cam Akers, I do have in now on Minnesota. I assume he's going to play. I also have Barkley as out for week 3. And Alvin Kamara is now back in the rankings because he is done with his suspension. So let's move on over to the running back rankings. There they are, Jake, for you on the screen right now. McCaffrey, Pollard, Bijan, Kenneth Walker, Mostert, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, James Cook, Zach Moss, and then we're into Derrick Henry, Brian Robinson, Miles Sanders, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson against Dallas, Joe Mixon against Tennessee, not a great matchup. We don't know who's playing quarterback for them. Gibbs, Madison, and Jerome Ford. And then you got your James Conner, Rashad White, Pacheco, and Damian Pierce tier, along with DeAndre Swift. Now, the DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, however that shakes out, we're going to know more after Monday night. We're recording this before Monday Night Football. The rankings will update on those guys. I just don't want to speculate because we're actually going to kind of know in, 7 hours from now how that backfield is probably going to shake out. Sans Boston Scott, who is not playing in that game. So that will just be more informative. It's all DeAndre Swift all the time again. He's going to vault up the rankings. Yeah,
and that's really what it comes down to. Is I guess the question follow up is like, what if it's 50-50? Like, and that's how I'm ranking. I don't go back to where did you finish with your ranks for rank 3 with Swift and Gainwell? Like, assuming Gainwell plays tonight, I only had them like 4 or 5 spots apart.
Well, I have DeAndre Swift at number 25, and then going down, I have Kenneth
for last week.
Oh,
as in like for tonight.
Oh,
that's what I was gonna say.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't remember? Well, no. So I was gonna say, depending on like, would you change? Like, you had Swift ahead of Gainwell, right? At least that part. Would you continue with that if it was a 50-50 split?
Yeah,
I think that's the question you have to ask yourself.
Probably, unless one is predominantly the pass catcher and one is utilized on the ground. Like if Gainwell is getting half the snaps and half the touches, and so is DeAndre Swift, but the split is like, I don't know, 15-10 in terms of DeAndre Swift.
Passing downs.
But in terms of passing downs, Kenneth Gainwell is getting like 7 targets and DeAndre Swift is getting 1. Then I'd probably lean Gainwell. I would assume it's probably going to be Swift. I'm looking at last week's rankings right now. I'd Gainwell at 27 and DeAndre Swift at 24. So that's where I was at.
Yeah. So, of course, if it does end up being a 70-30 split, then, yeah, we could move. That's the follow-up to that, too. What if it's 70-30 in Gainwell? Do we go right back to trusting that he's the guy? I think that coming off, that's the easiest answer. I think coming off that game that Swift just had, if he's not the lead option, if he doesn't see more than Gainwell, you know exactly what the Eagles want to do the rest of the season.
Well, at least for the next few weeks, I would think. But everything they've told us is that Gainwell's their guy. Like nothing has been
that's
disputed about that as of yet. We just haven't seen it in practice.
It'll be interesting against Washington too, because this could go one or two ways. You could have the Washington rush, I was going to say pass rush, but they get after the run some too. If that opens things up in the passing game, I think we might get a real tell of who's going to be the passing game option against Washington. Or it could just be like Washington this past week and 4 interceptions and they just grind out the clock. And then what if that's all game Waller Swift? So there's a lot to talk about with that one. I think their situation is worth monitoring as much as what we're down to now with, I saw you had Kenneth Walker up there and I can't argue against it. And I was just like, you know what? Kenneth Walker so far production-wise, that split is increasing, and I know this was a situation where they were up late too, but Charbonnet is getting worked in more and more and more, and we're back to the Ken Walker being inefficient in areas he should be, but he scored the touchdowns. Like, I can't complain about it right now. I just don't know if I would have him beside my top 5.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this top 5 then. I mean, the top 3, McCaffrey, Pollard, and Bijan are, put them in. I mean, McCaffrey's number 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to do. It's just the options that you have after
1, 2,
that.
3, 4, and 5.
Well, yeah, that's why I ended up going with Kenneth Walker at number 4. Like, I have Mostert right after that. I have ETN. I mean, ETN got one of his touchdowns stolen by Tank Dell, who had played like 4 snaps the entire game. Now, he might be hurt and out, so we can talk about that situation in a second. But like, Jacobs has been terrible. Williams has been fantastic. Maybe I should be trusting him more. We'll see what happens on Monday night. And then you have James Cook, who does everything besides score touchdowns, but that's going to limit your upside. And then we're into Zach Moss. Like, Derrick Henry's at number 11. So when I take a look at Kenneth Walker,
that's what I was saying. Like,
he's going to be.
I don't know how much further you could push him.
That's the thing. That's why I put him at number 4. Like, he's going to get his 20-ish carries. He's going to get the goal line work, and it's a pretty good matchup Monday night against the Giants.
Yeah, and that's speaking of the Giants, you don't have Barkley in your ranks, but if he starts practicing this week, you can't wait for that entire game. And if your backup plan is Charbonnet, like I just wouldn't wait for the Giants and Saquon Barkley. I'm with you. I would have him out. I don't think he would play, but they've already threw out the thing where it was like, oh, he's possible for week 4.
I mean, he was technically possible for week 3 too, despite the fact there was no chance of ever him playing.
Oh, he was also a regular sprain, and then all of a sudden we get to Thursday night, and it's like, oh, it's high ankle. Like, you lied to us. So let's talk about Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's exactly who I wanted to talk about. He's at number 11 in the rankings this week, sandwiched between Zach Moss, who is ahead of him, and Brian Robinson, who is just after him. Brian Robinson averaged 7 yards a carry against the Bills. Unfortunately, he only had 10 carries, and because their team was absolutely atrocious in that game. However, with Henry, you got to think about, it was a tough matchup. They got behind way early, and that seems like something that might happen to the Titans this year. They have, who do they have this
week? Because Tannehill sucks?
Yes, Tannehill sucks. Maybe they start playing Malik Willis, or maybe they resurrect Will Levis on his cup of mayonnaise, whatever it might be. Against Cincinnati with either no Burrow or a banged-up Burrow should be a circumstance where he's probably going to touch the ball 20 times. Even though Spears out-snapped him against Cleveland, Henry still dominated the touches.
Yeah, and I think that this is a fair spot to have him, as you just mentioned, against Cincinnati at home. Brian Tannehill's been terrible for this offense, but Derrick Henry's still getting the touches. I'd say a bounce back. To go to a tough matchup, you could argue, because of how good their entire defense is like maybe it's not the Tennessee Titans specific run defense, but I would take the Browns defense overall. I've seen a lot of the things being tweeted out as we're doing this on Monday on Twitter or X, what the hell ever. People are saying like it's statistically, and it's only 3 weeks, very small sample, statistically the most dominant defense since 1999. Like that's how scary this Browns defense has been. Of course, again, small sample, 3 weeks. But if you told me that the Bengals are going to be able to stop Derrick Henry any way that the Browns did, and then you mentioned the game flow on top of it, I think this is a good buying opportunity. I think he's still an RB1. That's why I wanted to bring him up, because I know a lot of people are concerned right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would buy him. Like, in terms of a trade, I don't know what I'd give up for him at the moment, because I would.
A-Chain.
Yeah, yes, I would give up A-Chain for Derrick Henry.
Like, there's
that is something I would do.
It's plausible. Like, let's also remember that immediately the trades that happen.
Who are you playing in leagues with? Like brain dead people?
No, this is the point. This is what happened just like 2 weeks ago. We're talking about all the trades immediately to trade high. It was Travis Kelce. I don't remember who was the one to say sell high after week 2. And then Andy Behrens was tweeting on Yahoo all these trades that went down with like Travis Kelce straight up. And it was somebody like mediocre running back or something. I don't even remember what it was. But we say like, you and I sit here and laugh, and everybody who's been watching us together for almost 15 years, whatever it is now, is like they like, oh, we're smart, and like we are, but they don't only play with smart people. Like my home league has a lot of intelligent people, but they have casual. I have casual people in my home league that like check in, and they like, you're gonna get box score checking, you get excitement for A chain, you're gonna get whatever it is, and you could pull off a trade like that in some leagues. I know there's not my league guys, but there are plenty of leagues. The fact that Kelsey went straight up for however it was, I can't remember. I think it was Mostert actually. I don't even remember, but like those kind of things happen. And that's why I say there's an opportunity. You could get A-Chain and immediately flip it from Derrick Henry with how worried people are. People think Derrick Henry is losing the job to Spears at this point.
Well, there's no evidence of that.
There isn't, but people will see. People, like, it's the perception. You gotta remember, perception sways too much in this industry.
I suppose. I just think that Derrick Henry is a bad example because if people drafted Derrick Henry, they probably drafted him either at the... If it's someone as casual to think about giving up Derrick Henry for A-Chain in a trade, they drafted Derrick Henry in the first round then because they know Derrick Henry and they know he's awesome. So I think that he's not a great example of this. But like someone like James Cook, for example, like I think that's a plausible trade that could be out there and one I would instantly click yes on.
Raheem Mostert, straight for there. I think that's maybe even better.
A-Chain for Mostert?
He's the Mostert for Henry. He's the number one running back in all of football right now, all of fantasy.
I worry. I mean, I'm kind of with you on all these Dolphins running backs. They're going to have huge games somewhere, but it's going to start getting more difficult to predict the farther that we go into the season.
Yes.
So, what about this? What about A-Chain for Miles Sanders?
Yeah.
Miles Sanders,
I'm not a Miles Sanders.
I mean, if we're talking half point and full point PPR, he has the most targets of any running back.
Yeah, and what has he done with them?
Well, he's been, top 20 every week?
That's barely.
Still, but he is.
And this is, I don't. I have no desire to have Miles Sanders on my roster.
Okay, let's talk Alvin Kamara then, who's making his return this week. Not great that Jameis is the quarterback now and not Derek Carr, because I think that Derek Carr would kind of lean on him to check down a little bit. But I just don't envision a scenario where they're like easing him back in. It's like, oh, well, you're now in a 3-way split with Tony Jones or a 4-way split with Tony Jones, Taysom Hill, and Kendry Miller. Like, it's just going to be Kamara with like 15 to 20 carries, and hopefully he gets a bunch of catches too.
He'll get some catches. The new Jameis Winston, and Jameis actually throws to running backs more than people want to give him credit for. It's not Derek Carr, or not even Derek Carr. It was not Drew Brees level. I'm just brain fart there. Drew Brees, to go back to him. It's one of those, again, I'm going to bring up perception. Again, it's like Drew Brees threw the running back so much that, of course, anybody even throwing 20% of the time to running backs seems like a huge drop off. But Jameis does throw to running backs. Like the perception, I know that's not what you were saying, but like there is the perception out there that Jameis just won't throw to a running back. It'll be fine. Will it be 8 targets? No, but it'll be 3 or 4. I'm with you on Kamara where you have him ranked. I think you immediately put him back into your lineup as a, what do you have him, RB2? Yeah, high-end RB2.
High-end RB2. I do have him behind Miles Sanders because the matchup isn't terrible for Carolina this week, and I think that Dalton's going to go again. And they couldn't give Bryce Young this playbook where it's just like, hey, man, just drop back and sling it. Who cares?
He can't see over the offensive lineman. He's too short. That's why.
But like you put old man Andy Dalton, they were running the Greenbrier offense, the old white offense. It was Dalton and Thielen. It's like, all right, man. Like, what? I guess they didn't care if Andy Dalton dies on the field. They're like, you're gonna drop back 60 times and throw it wherever you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, Minnesota's a good matchup, as you mentioned. I don't mind Miles Sanders there for this week. Also, just because you're talking about the volume. I mean, who else are you going to push in front of him?
Aaron Jones is at 15. I have him returning after 2 games. We'll see how it goes.
Returning Thursday.
It is Thursday night, so I think it's important to talk about. It's probably less important to talk about. Like, if Aaron Jones is active, I think that you should play Aaron Jones. I think it's pretty clear with the ranking at 15. If he doesn't play, I don't think you can play A.J. Dillon.
No, you can't.
He's terrible.
You know who? You know what? 2 running backs that could be in a starting opportunity in week 4 that you might as well just it's the sabotage dump. Drop A.J. Dillon, drop Joshua Kelly, and then if they're both the lead options in week 4, laugh as people get a 3 in their lineup.
Okay. Ramondre did not look great against the Jets. It's tough to look good against the Jets. We'll see how he looks against the Cowboys, but I don't expect too much, so he's at 16. Mixon is playing Tennessee, either, again, with the banged-up Burrow or Jake Browning at quarterback. We'll see how that goes. I do have Jahmyr Gibbs at 18, and then I have Madison at number 19. It's against Carolina. It's not a terrible matchup. He did perform the best he's done all season long against the Chargers, and he still mustered 90 yards on the ground in a game where it didn't seem like the Chargers were like all that concerned about stopping the run. They were really doubling down on stopping the pass for as much as they could do. And now we probably inject Cam Akers into it a little bit.
And probably gets involved a little bit. Madison got like a reprieve, a little more. But as you mentioned, the biggest thing I keep going back to is I don't even know if Cam Akers is going to fix the problem. This comes back to the issue for Madison, not necessarily. Look, Madison doesn't look like a top 10 running back, doesn't even potentially look like a top 15 or top 20 running back with how he's looked. I won't put it all on his shoulders, though, because if you watch that game, you mentioned the Chargers were trying to focus on the pass. And even so, with 4 rushers, that offensive line was still struggling to get even a yard of push for Alexander Madison. And that's more the issue than anything. I just think this team is going to struggle to run the ball because of their offensive line. So part and parcel to Alexander Madison is that if you're not a Saquon Barkley behind an offensive line like that, and I bring him up because the Giants have the same issue right now with all their injuries, their offensive line is falling apart. When you have a poor offensive line, it exacerbates if you're a mid-level running back. You know, obviously if you have like the Cleveland Browns offensive line, Jerome Ford can be fine, even in a bad matchup. So I think that's the issue for Madison. So I'm saying all this to say, I'd still start him where you have him. If Akers eats in 40% first game out there for him, I would be concerned about both of them going forward.
Yes, if Akers is going to play that much, then it's curtains. I mean, it's basically curtains for Madison anyway, because he kind of reeks. So he's at 19, and that's assuming like 80% of the work. If all of a sudden he's getting 60% of the work, he's barely a top 35 guy.
Yeah, they're done. Even if Akers only got 60% of the work, that still wouldn't be enough for me to want any running back on the mind. That's what I was getting to as well. Is I don't want either running back unless they're getting 70+% in this backfield.
So this 20 to 24 is an interesting tier. It's like Ford, Connors, Jerome Ford, James Conner, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, and Dameon Pierce. Guys that probably, I mean, White's probably going to have to do most of his damage in the receiving game anyway, and we'll see how he does on Monday night. Obviously, he hasn't played yet, so maybe if you want to use that running back trick where you can just pick someone up instead of using waivers, you can pick up Sean Tucker. That would probably be the best of the best on, or Ronnie Rivers for the Rams in case Williams gets hurt.
Yeah, he was the first one up. There's talk about Zach Evans too, but I don't know. I think that actually might be a split if anything were to happen to Kyron.
So this Ford to Pierce tier for me is sort of like a safe tier, like a low floor safe tier is what you're looking at here. And maybe a low floor, a high floor, not limited upside, but a lack of upside versus some of the bigger name options. Like Connor could have a really good game. He just had a really good game against Dallas, and now they're 14-point underdogs in San Francisco. So he could pile up 6 catches or something crazy like that, but you wouldn't expect him to have like 20 carries. With Rachaad White, you're hoping he gets enough work on the ground and then enough through the air to make it so. Pacheco, you're just hoping he scores a touchdown. He's going to get his 12 to 15 carries for 80-ish yards, and you hope he finds the end zone because he's not really doing much. It feels like week 1 was an aberration for him in terms of the receiving game.
The receiving game, yes. The good thing about Pacheco is it's been ticking up as he's been healthier. Is complete the time that he was on the field with Patrick Mahomes, because people don't look only at the pure snaps for running backs in week 2 or week 3 because they got pulled off the field because they were stopped. That was third quarter. He pulled them off the field. That's so disrespectful. But for Mahomes being out there, it's still the majority of the snaps are going to Pacheco. So yeah, but you mentioned it against the Jets. Dameon Pierce, same thing. Against Pittsburgh, you're hoping they get into the end zone and save their day.
Yeah, and Pierce actually looked pretty good, although Singletary played a ton of snaps. I was surprised about that.
This is the thing. We talked about it week 2, is that after week 1, the entire preseason of Dameon Pierce, bell cow, Dameon Pierce in the passing game, he's losing weight because he's running so many routes. And then week 1 shows up and it's like, Dameon Pierce, 60%. I think that's what Houston's going to do. So
25 to 35, all the way down to 40. We got DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Josh Kelly at 28. I mean,
too high.
That's too high? Okay, let's move him down. Where do we want to put Josh Kelly?
Public information. I don't like Breida, but he was the guy for the Giants and it's Seattle. Again, I still don't like him.
Okay,
but I would play Breida before I'd play Kelly.
Okay, A-Chain or Kelly?
Yeah, A-Chain.
Okay, Elijah Mitchell or Kelly?
Now you're talking about 40%, 30% of that. I'd put him there. But that's probably not playable in most leagues at 33.
At 33? No, I would agree with you. It's funny, like he just like, where do I have Najee Harris at 37? Like he and Najee Harris are going to have a good game somewhere, and you're just better off wasting that on your bench rather than playing these idiots. Who's better, do you think? Prime Trent Richardson or Najee Harris? Because they're both terrible.
I think Najee Harris. Like, again, it's the game. Again, this is the perception thing. Is the person with the more explosive plays and more explosive runs, despite what everybody thinks by watching it, Najee Harris has more than Jalen Warren. On a percentage basis, too. Actually, heading into that game last night, Jalen Warren had 0% explosive plays. 0. So, yes, it looks bad, but it goes back to the Madison thing. I think part of it is Najee Harris, yes, at this point, is not a great running back. Let's just make that clear. I'm not arguing for it.
Sounds like you
are. But Najee Harris on the field, it's one of those situations like where you have the passing tight end and the blocking tight end, and you kind of give some things away depending on who's on the field. Obviously, you can manipulate a little bit, but Najee Harris, so much first and second down, so much clear running plays. And if you look at it, he's just getting slammed before he gets to the offensive line. Again, I'm not making apologies saying Najee Harris should be an RB1. Not at all. Somebody came from was like, I can't believe you told me to draft Najee Harris. I was like, actually go check. I was 3 spots lower than consensus. Like I still had him as outside the RB1, but as a high end RB2. But I was kind of low on him just because of the concern of Jalen Warren sharing more. We were all wrong. Let's make it clear. The entire industry was wrong on having Najee Harris as top 15 running back. It's also circumstantial. Like it's not as bad as it seems. I saw what you had. Pittsburgh against Houston, I would start Najee Harris over Jalen Warren.
I would not, because he sucks and you don't want to play him.
And that's certainly fine. If we get reports on Wednesday, they're actually going to flip it.
I don't care about reports. He can have 80% of the touches. That's good for 2.7 fantasy points. It's terrible. But he's averaging like...
I'm just going to take the work.
By one, I mean, you can say it like, yeah, maybe on first and second down, they're tipping their hands. Jalen Warren had 1 rush in that game for like 9 yards. It's like, oh my God, this guy is 8,000 times faster than Najee Harris. He looks like he runs in quicksand.
Perception,
I mean, I'm watching it. He's not going anywhere. He moves very slowly. He can't hit an edge. They don't pass to him. Like, what's he good for?
I'm just telling you. I'm looking right now. And then in that game, Jalen Warren, right now, more percentages for 0 or negative yard rushing than Najee Harris had.
Okay. Who has more fantasy points this year?
No, that's certainly fine. It was 6.7 and 6.5 in week 3. It wasn't like there was a big discrepancy between the two. And here's the other one. 8 men in the box, almost 50% for Najee Harris, 37 for Jalen Warren. Again, I'm just saying, like, I'd still go Harris because let's even make the agreement. Let's even say Jalen Warren looks objectively more explosive. That's what my whole point was, is I'm not even saying like Najee Harris still has some explosiveness. Let's even just say Jalen Warren's better. Let's just say Jalen Warren's more explosive. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't giving him 30 touches or 20 even. Najee Harris is always going to be in line for 18, 20, sometimes 30 if they're up by a lot. That's why I'm chasing Najee Harris still to this point until they make the switch.
Unless he's getting 30 carries. See, like the only way he's reaching double digits in terms of fantasy points. At least Warren can catch passes.
He can get in the end zone. They scored almost identical in week 3.
They did, and that was on 8 carries.
Almost twice as many touches. I know.
Yeah, Harris had twice as many touches and scored the same amount of fantasy points.
And I'm not disagreeing, but that's what I'm saying. The volume is not going away because the Steelers haven't done it. The Steelers the thing is, we can scream and yell at the top of our lungs that we want a team to do something. And if the team doesn't do it, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but you're now putting yourself into a position where you're playing Harris, and now he needs this volume in order to be bad. So if he gets less volume, and it does shift a little bit, whether that happens or not, we don't know. But let's say it's closer to 50-50, and they both get 14 carries each or 12 carries each. Well, Warren's going to outscore him because Najee sucks. Like, there's no upside playing this guy.
I mean, you just made the argument for why, like, Isaiah Pacheco was.
Isaiah Pacheco plays for the Chiefs and routinely gets in the end zone.
Okay, but I'm just saying, what's the difference between Pacheco and you're just hoping for a touchdown?
Well, Pacheco, sometimes when he gets hit, sometimes he can turn a corner and run down the field, not look like he's having a heart attack.
Fine, we're not going to change each other's opinions on this.
No, I'm gonna hold very firm on.
We're also arguing about guys in the 30s.
Well, I mean, what do you want to argue? That don't sit Derrick Henry for Jalen Warren? No, we're not going to argue about that.
No.
The highest ranked Bears running back is 40 with Khalil Herbert. Roschon is number 41. Dalvin Cook also cooked. He might be slower than Najee.
And why wouldn't you at this point for the same argument have Roschon Johnson over Khalil Herbert?
Because I have them both in the 40s because I don't want to fucking play any of these idiots. They're terrible.
But I'm saying,
They're
if
terrible.
you're forced to play one of them, it should be Roschon Johnson.
No, I'm going to play Herbert.
If you're going to make the argument for Warren.
If a running back is going to have any value, it's going to be Herbert early in this game, and somehow they can get up. If they can get up in this game, I think it's going to be Herbert. We keep seeing Roschon when they're down by 20.
Okay, exactly. And it could happen in this game.
You
So
think that Denver,
same case for Warren.
You think that Denver is going to be up on them by 20?
They can actually at least score points. Their defense can't stop anything, but at least their offense can score points every single week.
I know. I'm not playing any Bears running back. I'd rather play backups. I'd rather play Charbonnet. I'd rather play Mitchell. I'd rather play Zeke. I'd rather play Jarek, Algier than any Bears running back. And you can go find those guys. Or just go look at my number 27. Just go pick up Melvin Gordon and play him.
Melvin Gordon. Justice Hill is going to be back.
Justice Hill? No, Justice Hill is not going to be back.
Yeah, they already said he was close in week.
see.
He's going to see your desktop, too.
The toe? Yeah.
Yeah.
Toe injury? Nah, he's not going to be back. If he's back, then don't play Melvin Gordon, obviously. I don't think he's going to be back.
And you play Justice Hill.
Well, if Justice Hill's not back, you can't play him. I mean, I'd probably play him over Najee Harris, even if he didn't play. But if he's out and Gus Edwards is out, I'd play Melvin Gordon over half these guys.
Melvin, talk about Melvin Gordon's not better than Najee Harris.
He has. You know what? If those two are out, can we bet a substantial amount of money on that this week of who scores more fantasy points? Melvin Gordon.
Well, no, the difference is. Well, no, because the difference is there's no Hill. They're still not Keaton Mitchell anymore.
We're talking about fantasy rankings. Melvin Gordon's better than Najee Harris. Najee Harris sucks.
Okay, if you want to talk fantasy rankings, I would say yes, Melvin Gordon, if there's no Justice Hill, because there's nobody else in the backfield left.
Yeah. I mean, there's other people in the Pittsburgh backfield, and Harris is getting 20 touches, and it's still terrible.
That's why I said. That's why if you switch the two, my point was if you switch the two, Najee Harris would do a better job than Melvin Gordon would.
You know, I don't know about that. We see this with running backs. They're done. That's all. It's like Bart. What's his catchphrase? Ran out. That's going to be it. You're finished. That's all. Just show him the back door.
Anybody else you want to talk about as you're about to ask that question?
No. Is there anyone else you want to talk about? Because I think I'm good.
I think we're good. I don't think there's anybody left to talk about.
All right, let's jump on over to the wide receivers. We'll do the injury report first. Once again, that's in the newsletter. Quez Watkins is out for Monday Night Football. Christian Watson, he missed week 3, hasn't played yet this year. He plays on Thursday Night Football. I have him in the rankings right now. You can follow along with me in the newsletter or up on the screen as well. Mike Williams is likely out for the season, so that's going to be a talking point, especially when it comes to pickups. Jonathan Mingo suffered a concussion late. We'll see if he ends up playing or not for the Carolina Panthers. Justin Jefferson had cramps. He returned to the game, so he's going to be okay. Jalen Waddle, I'm expecting him to pass protocol. That seems to be the new concussion protocol. If you're in the protocol, you're going to miss a week. You'll be back the week after that. Zay Jones, not quite sure what he's up to. They're going to London for 2 weeks starting this week against the Falcons. So I would expect him to be back after missing last week. Don't know with Beckham. I kept him out of the rankings. Ayuk, I have in the rankings right now, but I dropped him a little bit lower because I just don't think he's going to be... they might just gratuitously put him out there for a start, and then they get up by like 20, and they're like, all right, man, Juwan Jennings is in the game. Don't worry about it. And then Deontay Johnson and his hamstring problem is still on injured reserve. So that leaves Jefferson, Hill, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Stefan Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Puka, DK Metcalf, Debo, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett. Then we got Amari Cooper at 21. Nico at 22, Christian Watson in his return, if he plays, at number 23. Jacoby Myers, who just is going to be, we'll see if Jimmy ends up playing or not, but either way, he's clearly the number 2 on this team, like even above Josh Jacobs in terms of scoring fantasy points at this point. So he's 24. Cortland Sutton, Michael Thomas, T. Higgins, Brendan Ayuk, that's where I dropped him down to for this week. DJ Moore, Jahan Dotson, Gabe Davis, Thielen, McLaurin, Zay Flowers, Tutu Atwell, DJ Chark, Garrett Wilson at 37, George Pickens, Drake London, and Jahan Dotson. Then you're into like DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Reynolds. Watching the Tennessee...
Jahan Dotson and twice.
Do I have Jahan Dotson in twice? I should probably take him
because I was going to say, when you went past him the first time, he's way too high.
Yeah, so he was probably the second one. Then I'll get rid of him at 30. There we go. Boom. See, this we can do it live on the show. So he's actually going to be ranked at number 39. Thank you for editing that for me. I'm surprised the editors didn't pick that up when the article was actually published. Thanks, guys. How high would you have Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed if Watson sits again against Detroit?
Against Detroit, well, the Gardner Johnson injury has been a factor, but they're still able to get after the quarterback. So I would still have them similarly to what I had them in this past week as a 3 and 4. I think Dobbs is the safer play, and then obviously Reed for the upside. Actually, he would have had a touchdown. It was a tough catch. I thought he actually had that at first. But against Detroit, the difference here is we know we're getting bad Jared Goff. And not only is it outdoors, but it's Green Bay outdoors. Like a tough spot. He's probably going to stink it up a bit. So I don't know that Green Bay is going to have to go too pass happy. And we just saw like Jordan Love has been on a great touchdown rate through the first 2 weeks, which you brought up last week. And you can't throw for 200 yards a game and continue to throw 3 touchdowns every single week. So again, I would keep him as a 3 and a 4. Reed being the wide receiver 4 with the higher ceiling, but Dobbs as the safer play.
Yeah, and he seems to be their, at least at this moment, he's the chuck it up guy when they're inside the 10-yard line.
Who, Dobbs?
Yeah.
Well, that's what they had that one that went to Reed. That's what I'm saying. So
they did, but Dobbs is the one who ended up coming down with the touchdown. He had the 2 in week 1.
Yeah.
Like, he's a big body. This is what they kind of have him for at this point. I think when Watson comes back, you might see him get phased out a little bit and Reed kind of retain the role that he has right now. I'm actually surprised Musgrave doesn't have a bigger role in the red zone for them.
I'm surprised as well. A lot of people were on Musgrave as a sneaky play. I thought he'd have a better opportunity. I'm looking right now, but this is what I'm looking at while we're talking, because we brought up the Dotson situation. I was looking at, because they play the Eagles, and mentioned in week 1, mentioned in week 2, mentioned again in week 3, and I'll do it once again. The slot option tight ends and slot wide receivers are going to continue to do work against them all year long. You might not see that much with Tampa Bay because it's K-Dot and Trey Palmer, but Dotson's not that much of an edge over Curtis Samuel in the slot. I was going to say, if this was the week to get right with Dotson, finally, this might be it, but there's no guarantee it's him or Palmer or Curtis Samuel. So I think it's a fair spot where you have him given that risk.
With Mike Williams likely out for the season, how high is too high for Keenan Allen if you're ranking wide receivers the rest of the season? Is he a top 5 receiver?
He already is. So
you wouldn't have considered that. You would not have had him ranked inside the top 5 before last week. You wouldn't have.
But you had him like 7 or 8.
Sure.
I don't know if you did. Top 10.
I did have him inside the top 10, but I think that most people would be like, hey, man, I want Amon-Ra rather than Keenan Allen for the rest of the season. But without Mike Williams there, it's probably just Keenan Allen.
It is. But, I mean, this is the same thing. Somebody asked me, like, I had Amon-Ra St. Brown at like 5 Sunday morning. And like, the toe is not bothering you or whatever. I'm like, fine, I'll move him down to 9. Like, you're starting, like, who cares if he's 4 or 7?
Okay. Do you think, I mean, obviously you're going to know this probably by the time that you watch this show. I have a feeling Joe Burrow might either go on IR or just suck playing through this injury. And that's going to be a real problem for these Cincinnati receivers.
The bigger concern is the latter part is that he continues to try and play through it. Like, hey, look, you just brought up Keenan Allen. Like Keenan Allen last year, trying to play through an injury, and then which is why I'm with you and not so certain that Barkley plays in week 2, because they already did this. They did this 2 years ago when he came back from the high ankle sprain against the Cowboys. And we all remember that year. Barkley was not Barkley when he came back. So I think that teams should be smart. But the Bengals, just even the fact that you and I are sitting here at 2:00 on Monday, and all the reports are like he feels good and likely to try to play through it tonight. Like, we're really going to do this. Like, I know you're a playoff contender. I know you're a Super Bowl contender if everything's right. But if you are, you're doing it with Joe Burrow, not Jake Browning. The mistake would be to continue to play through this. And I would be concerned about Chase, Higgins, and all of them, Joe Mixon included, if they continue to try and force Burrow out there every single week.
Yeah, so that will get updated. Like, we see Burrow on Monday night, and he sucks again. Like, he's not getting substantially better over the next 7 days in terms of health. That I'm probably going to have to bump these guys down. Like, bumping Chase down to 12, and I know he can do it by himself. A lot like Garrett Wilson did last week when he just took one slant to the house, and he paid off his entire week. What happens if that
Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens is the same way. Like, these big play guys. Now, I think that Chase and Wilson are on a different level than George Pickens in terms of talent and what they garner from their team. But if you have quarterbacks who simply cannot get them the ball, they're kind of useless.
They are, which is what we saw with Garrett Wilson this week versus, like you just said, week 2. The good thing here is I still play Chase and Higgins because I wouldn't move him down that far. It's because they get the Titans. They just made Deshaun Watson look good.
Except for that one time that Deshaun Watson tried to pass backwards.
Oh my God, dude. What the hell was that?
I don't know.
Like, not only throwing it as you're going to the ground, throwing it backwards as you're. This is like, people in college don't even do that anymore.
I think he thought he was facing the right way, and he got spun around and like lost his sense of where he was on the field.
It's still a terrible decision.
Well, don't know what to tell you. Ayuk, I have at 28. Do you think that's too low coming off this injury? Because Debo is dealing with a ribs issue as well. I have Debo higher, but I didn't rank him as high as I would for the spike. I have Debo in his regular spot, and Ayuk would normally be with him at like 15, 16. You can see Debo I have at number 15 right now, and I have Ayuk down at number 28. Do you think that's unfair, or should this be something that we monitor throughout the week?
Monitor through the week, but I think it's fair for we're talking about this motion. We're talking about the catching the shoulder. You got to be able to lift your arm up, and it's, yes, it's through the pain, but you can only have a certain amount of, like, I've had a cortisone shot in my shoulder before I had the surgery. You can only have a certain amount, like, it's like, is it one every 30 days? I don't remember what it was, but I knew you can't do a cortisone shot and cortisone shot and cortisone shot and cortisone shot to make the pain go away, is my point. So it's going to be a pain management thing for Ayuk, which makes you think, like, if he's out there. But still, like, what if he gets hit on it in the game, and then all of a sudden, like, he can't, and then he comes out like that. So I think where you have him, we know, like, it's something we've said a lot on your show for all these years when we used to do it about DJ Moore. That's the wrong rank, Pat. You have ranked Ayuk wrong. He's either going to finish pretty high, or he's going to be much lower. Like, 28's not the right rank.
Agreed. But we also, my rankings are for people to start and sit, and this is the threshold. Right. And to explain it to people
where the risk is worth it.
Yeah, where the risk is now worth it. Like, I think T. Higgins is very much in that same boat, too. I don't think there's any way that he's wide receiver 27 for the week. He's either like 71 or 10.
Yeah. And I think this is why I have no problem. Gabe Davis, a healthy Gabe Davis. This is the same thing. You get great Gabe Davis or you get nothing Gabe Davis.
These Carolina receivers are ranked as if Andy Dalton is playing, by the way. That's why DJ Chark is
so Adam Thielen time.
Yeah, well, Adam Thielen's way above this. Adam Thielen's all the way up at, where the hell is Adam Thielen? I have to go
31.
31, there he is. We have Adam Thielen at 31, DJ Chark at 35. DJ Chark looked good down the field, as he is wont to do.
That's what he can do. It's just whether or not DJ Chark can stay healthy for 3 consecutive weeks.
Oh, he's healthy right now. I have Tank Dell at number 43. Is that too low for Tank Dell?
Against Pittsburgh, I don't think it is. I think you still have the risk here. Like, Nico Collins, it was an off week for him, but had been the number 1 through the first 2 weeks. Robert Woods has been kind of used, as you brought up 2 weeks ago, and now he's down out of the usage. That seems Tank Dell has moved past him. But it's just, CJ Stroud against Pittsburgh, it's been great for Stroud. Like, we knew this year, like, with all the quarterbacks, he's the best pocket passer, but in fantasy, we limited him because of the rushing upside. And also, nobody was expecting to throw this much. It's been great, and he's looked everything as advertised in the pocket. This is a real test. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense isn't like the fearsome one from 15, 20 years ago, but it's scary enough that this is a test where Tank Dell, I think, falls into prime Cole Beasley years. Your favorite wide receiver 3 of the Bees years. I think that's where Tank Dell is like, you're going to get 6 for 70. Could it get a little bit better with some broken plays and a touchdown? Or could it be like a 4 for 40 type of week? That's kind of where he should be.
I think they're going to try to manufacture touches for him because he's so fast. So he'll get a few of those deep shots. He'll get a few of those bubble screens. And he's just going to be...
So a little bit better than Bees?
Yeah, well, Bees didn't have that breakaway speed like Tank Dell. Like, Bees wasn't getting behind. Only on Buffalo was he ever really getting behind the defense because defenses just had so much more concern about what was going on. Like, you have to worry about Diggs or Josh Allen taking off, that all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, there's Cole Beasley just standing down the field with no one around him. Dell was just burning people.
That is true. Yeah, I just don't know how much it's going to work against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I have this tier of guys right here after Josh Palmer, and we'll talk about him in a second. So at Josh Palmer's at number 48, Elijah Moore's at number 47, Jerry Jeudy's at 46. I have Sutton way above that. Sutton seems like Russ's guy, at least for the moment. But Marquise Brown, Robert Woods, Shaheed, Marvin Mims, Kelvin Austin, and Devontae Parker. Now, Woods isn't like these other guys. I guess Woods and Hollywood Brown are kind of similar, but this tier of Shaheed through Parker are just kind of like YOLO players. Like, they might just break a big one, and that's what you're banking on.
I know, which is crazy because Sean Payton wasn't lying. Marvin Mims is still only out there 16%, 16 snaps, but He gets his opportunities when he's out there. It's just, the Kendrick Bourne argument you made 2 weeks ago. I think you could even pull down further the tier underneath them.
So in terms of what? So I have like Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, Cooks, Bourne, Juwan Jennings, Christian Kirk. Assuming Zay Jones is back, Kirk would be much higher. If not, I think Rashee Rice is the one of the, if you're going to play a Kansas City wide receiver, it's now him and or Justin Watson at this point. I guess maybe Sky Moore. I have them at 61, 64, and 65 is what we're looking at in terms of Chiefs receivers at the moment. And the Jets isn't like an easy matchup. But Rice got stopped at the one twice. He had a good week one. He seems to be the one they want to incorporate in the red zone at least. So for a team that scores a ton of points, that's probably a good thing. And then I have Quentin Johnson at number 62. So what do you do with Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson?
I mean, for now, you still start Josh Palmer, but I think it's close. If you look at Quentin Johnston, he's actually been targeted more in his routes than Palmer has. It's just like Marvin Mims, he's barely on the field. I think the higher ceilings with Quentin Johnston. I think eventually he will take over because of the talent, but right now you have to play Josh Palmer over him just because he's clearly, it's just moving up a spot. You're going, Josh Palmer is now the 2, Quentin Johnston's now the 3. And I don't think it's a guarantee that Quentin Johnston's just automatically out there for 40 snaps or more. I mean, you might get other people mixed in, or your favorite, the Parham, is just going to be the one who just absorbs everything.
It could be. Any Giants receiver you'd go to? Is it Wendell now that he's back?
It's not Wendell Robinson. It's nobody.
Okay, so nobody.
Daniel Jones is trash.
I think Daniel Jones has let's get to quarterback rankings. Unless is there any other receiver? I feel like we just kind of flew through these, but you're starting to get a sense of where guys are at right now going into week 4. It's not, I mean, it's all guesswork. Let's not pretend like it's not.
Well,
but it's less guesswork now in terms of who's seeing opportunities and who's not.
You're right. I was trying to, here we go. I was trying to pull it up while we were talking to see the Zay Jones factor of when he was coming back, because they play Atlanta and London, as you mentioned. I was looking at how much man coverage. Well, no, because it's very specific. It's man coverage, Christian Kirk. Zone coverage, Zay Jones. And that's what I was looking for. So Atlanta is actually 11th in man coverage. So a little bit more of Christian Kirk this week, even if Zay Jones is back.
Okay. I'd still rather play. When they're both playing, I'd rather play Zay Jones. That is just work.
I understand it, but 2 weeks, week 2, it was the opposite. Or not week 2, week...
week 2.
Yeah, because he left. He left and came back, but even in that game...
He left and came back, and then he was so hurt he couldn't play the next week. Yeah, he was fine.
No. But I'm saying even up to the point when he left, it was more Christian Kirk because that was a man coverage game, a very heavy man coverage game. I'm saying slightly. This is just something to target. When you're trying to figure out Kirk and Zay Jones, default, I agree with you. I would play like neutral Zay Jones over Christian Kirk. But if it's a heavy man coverage team, that's where you want to lean Kirk.
I have Drake London at 38, but if there was a worse place still, he would be in worse place. Someone asked me, I remember this was a Sunday question that I got. It's like, do I start DK Metcalf or Drake London? It's like, you do not want to start Drake London. That's the last thing you want to do.
And you're telling me I can't trade A-Chain to go get Derrick Henry?
I think that's a little bit different. A guy that people literally just heard of. Like, if that's a trade that's going to happen in a league, that means that someone just heard who Devin... Because if you're able to pick him up, like, he's owned in a ton of leagues, like a quarter of leagues anyway. So if someone is just picking him up...
he might ever be on the roster.
What's that?
Coming off that game.
What do you mean?
I'm gonna tweet to you back. I'm gonna pull up the trades with A-Chain over Yahoo after we get through Wednesday to see what happened.
You know what? I would like to see this. And if it's like 2 trades, and like, yeah, there's 2 absolute goobers out there who are making trades.
Of course.
They probably have like Dolphins logos as their avatar. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you're gonna get idiots who play. Most people aren't idiots.
All their team names have a form of like Tua in the name.
Tua on. That's where you want to be. Tight ends for the week. I
thought we were doing quarterbacks.
No, we're going to do tight ends instead, because quarterbacks are pretty easy. Tight ends that are
I know, but I was crapping on Daniel Jones, and then you were like, let's talk quarterbacks and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I decided to switch it. Tight ends, Irv Smith is expected to be out for Monday Night Football, so I have him out of the rankings for next week as well. Will Disley missed this week, so I have him out of the rankings as well. I have no Foster Moreau with his ankle injury and no Logan Thomas because he might still be dizzy from that hit that he took. So, I mean, the tight end rankings are pretty similar. Some guy got like really mad at me because I had Travis Kelce ranked as the number 1 tight end last week. He's like, way to go out on a limb. It's like, would you prefer I not rank the best tight end at number 1? Like, I don't quite understand what you're getting at here. But I mean, he's probably one of these idiots who's trading Derrick Henry for A-Chain. So how do I know?
There you go.
Kelsey, Hawkinson, Kittle, Andrews, Waller, Evan Ingram, the Laporta Potty, Hunter Henry, Dallas Goedert, Firemouth at number 10, Zach Ertz, Njoku, Kyle Pitts, Jerry Everett, I put at number 14. He could be a benefactor here. He saw 6 targets against the Vikings. Then Kate Otten, Cole Turner, assuming that there's no Logan Thomas. I think he got stopped at the 1 yard line twice and dropped a touchdown. So he was at least involved in the red zone for Washington. We'll see how often they get into the red zone.
I told you that last week.
I know.
You're like, job mates.
Yeah, I ended up putting Turner above him. I listened to you. This is what we do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Juwan Johnson at 17. Jameis likes Juwan Johnson, by the way, from even when Jameis was playing like earlier last year. Jake Ferguson, Hayden, like, you don't want to, like, Noah Fant did see an increase in targets with Will Disley out. Now, I know that like Bobo ended up getting the touchdown, but primarily it was Noah Fant working in the Seattle offense at tight end. Laporta, how legit is Laporta?
The volume. It's really legit. But we're going back to now we're road Jared Goff, which is a concern. So I think he's legit. I think he's a tight end 1 because it's tight end 1s. Like, I mean, we get through 4. Like, I was already looking at your ranks and like, you know what? I play Ingram over Waller. And we're like, this is already disgusting. Like, we can't even get like good tight ends outside of 3 or 4 people. But I think he's in the conversation because the volume's there. So even if it's bad Jared Goff on the road, the volume's still going to be there because he is what Hawkinson was. He's essentially their number 2. Sometimes number 3 with Josh Reynolds 2 weeks ago, but Josh Reynolds banged up this week is part of the reason for, I'm just bringing it all together. It's like, it's Josh Reynolds and Laporta mixing as the number 2 option. And that's really what you have to look at. So the volume is going to be there for him. So he's in play. I think, honestly, if it was at home, I'd make the case of Laporta over Darren Waller.
Waller's been not great, but he's been fairly consistent so far.
Playing through an injury. Said it wasn't going to bother him and he's just going to keep going out there and going through it. But I mean, and go back to the fact that Daniel Jones stinks.
Oh, Daniel Jones is great. You're trying
You
to
don't have Jimmy Graham in the ranks?
I
Jimmy Graham?
don't have Jimmy Graham in the ranks. No, I do not. However, you're treating poor Daniel Jones like he's Najee Harris. He's not.
I know, he's worse.
Yeah, he's faster.
You know, he's not going to run without Saquon Barkley.
I don't know.
He didn't even run in that game.
I mean, it's tough to get away from the Niners defense.
We're getting to see, of course, it's just one game against the 49ers defense, as you mentioned, but this is what everybody wanted. We're going to get to see what Daniel Jones can do with no Saquon Barkley. Enjoy that $46 million and $40 million next year and whatever it is after that.
Yeah. Do you, like, when we talk about, like, streamers right now, I have Kyle Pitts at 13.
That's all he is a streamer.
He is. I agree. Like, if you have Kyle Pitts and, like, Laporta is out there, you drop him. I think you'd drop him for Hunter Henry, too. And I know that people want to, like, stick with Kyle Pitts because they just are so enticed. And it'll happen for him, like 2 games this year, but I don't think you want to be running him out there on a consistent basis.
Let's put it this way. That was Kyle Pitts' best game of the year. 3 weeks. That was his best game. He's still only tied on 14, and we haven't had 2 games of Monday Night Football to go.
It's pretty good. Tied in 14. I haven't ranked at number 13.
And it's just that I said the same thing in the waiver column last year. Drop him for Hunter Henry. Drop him for Laporta Potty if he's still out there.
Ertz.
Who else could we come up with? I'd drop him for Musgrave. Musgrave finished ahead of him in week 3, and it wasn't even that great.
Yeah, I suppose. But with guys like with Jones and Watson coming back, like I feel like that eats away from all Packers if they come back.
If they come back.
Sure.
Yeah. If both come back, then I would stick with just streaming Kyle Pitts, but that's about it.
Quarterbacks then. We'll do your quarterbacks because I have, where do I have Daniel Jones? I have number 8 this week, so that's fun. Josh Allen is number 1. Tua is number 2. Jalen Hurts is number 3. Herbert, Lamar, Mahomes, Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, Geno, Justin Fields at 10. Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson, Kirk Cousins, the Goof, and then C.J. Stroud, and Andy Dalton. Some really tough quarterback matchups, even at the higher end. Like Lamar's in pretty tough this week against Cleveland. Mahomes is in pretty tough against the Jets. So it was a nice opportunity to put like Brock Purdy up there in a pretty gravy matchup. Daniel Jones. And listen, Seattle's not stopping anyone. Yeah. This we've seen through 3 weeks.
No. Don't care. Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence should all be behind Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, number 1 quarterback. I don't believe it's going to continue, but I don't think it's going to really stop against Carolina. All three of them behind Kirk Cousins, and then you need to push. Go back, pull up the list again. CJ Stroud needs to move up one spot, I think, is what it was.
He needs to go over
I'd play
Goff?
CJ Stroud over Golf on the road.
Okay. I'll bump those down. I'll listen to you. I'll put Cousins above. I'm playing Daniel Jones instead of Cousins, but I'll put Cousins at 10. That's the
Well,
ultimate.
you need to move Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence behind Anthony Richardson.
I mean, I could. I mean, at this point, they have to. I don't know if this is going to be like they'll talk about it like, well, Anthony Richardson can't run so much, but he got crushed in week 1 trying to run and almost like had to come out of the game. And then in week 2, he suffers a concussion from running again. Like, he's going to have to stop running so much.
That's what we said about Josh Allen.
But Josh Allen
Cam
didn't.
Newton
But Josh Allen and Cam Newton didn't pile up concussions right away in their first 3 starts.
Sure, but like you're just going to take it away. That's half of his game. I'm playing Anthony Richardson before I touch Justin Fields at this point. I don't care if it's against Denver, and I don't care if it's against Denver High School. No, Justin Fields at this point is legitimate concern.
Oh, I would agree with you. Okay, I'll put Anthony Richardson at 11, put Justin Fields at number 12. Is there any of these back end,
one.
any of these back guys that you actually do kind of like this week? Like, I could see Russell Wilson.
Stafford over Dalton and Pickett. Stafford just throwing. Stafford's 100% healthy, and that's all that matters. And he gets Indianapolis this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to play him over Dalton, but
why do you love Dalton so much?
Dalton's just going to be slinging. It's going to be great.
Yeah, he's going to be slinging 4 interceptions, like one of those Dalton games.
Sure. I mean, I've seen Jameis Winston throw 4 interceptions in a game and end up being the number 1 scoring quarterback of the week.
No, that's happened. That was a long time ago, though.
It was. Now Andy Dalton can do that.
Trying to look at anywhere else in the list.
And if there's one thing we've learned about Minnesota is that they don't generate turnovers. They just turn the ball over.
Pull your list back up again one more time. Sorry, as I continue, because I'm just looking down, because you said anybody else. I'm just looking further down here.
I have Aiden O'Connell instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. It would be a decent Jimmy spot against the Chargers, but he's in concussion protocol. I don't know if he's going to play. You want to play Mac Jones?
I know Dobbs is fun, but there's no way I'm playing Dobbs over Winston against the 49ers.
Oh, I don't know. That'd just be tons of garbage time for him. And Dobbs has been better in his 4 starts over the past year than Jameis has been in 3 years.
Sure has been.
Like, Jameis has been.
By the way, Mac Jones. I don't even love Mac Jones, but Mac Jones over Ryan Tannehill at this point.
No, never.
Nobody's gotten this far down, but
Mac Jones is the absolute worst. Actually, the third worst. Zach Wilson and Desmond
you know who
Ridder are objectively the
he has
worst.
more fantasy points than Daniel Jones. Mac Jones does.
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
Well, they don't play down.
And that's with Daniel Jones being the number 1 quarterback in fantasy in week 2, and he still has fewer points than Mac Jones does.
Well, this is a good matchup for Daniel Jones this week. He's not playing Dallas, and he is not playing the 49ers. Hell,
I'm not saying put Mac Jones into relevancy.
I'll rank him pretty low against the Eagles as well. They're not playing those teams this week. They're playing Seattle.
Actually, the good thing about the Eagles' pass defense, we're going to see again tonight to see if it's going to hold true after 2 weeks. The run defense is still very good. Pass defense is more than just a slot and tight end so far. Like, their entire pass defense hasn't been good through 2 weeks.
Okay. Defenses. Let's get to these. I think I ranked 19 of them this week, with San Francisco being number 1 against Arizona, Philadelphia, then Kansas City, Dallas, and then the Chargers. I think this is a really nice spot for the Chargers against Oakland. And I'm
rookie,
against either a rookie or even if it's against Jimmy G. Like, Jimmy G's made some very poor decisions this year.
He has. He's also trying to kill his wide receivers in the middle of the field like he always does.
It's funny Collinsworth pointed that out. That's not something you normally hear a commentator do.
I know that he brought it up too.
Yeah. Just their
It's funny. I was tweeting about it, and then I heard him say it, and I was like, yeah, that's not normally something they point out like that.
The Raiders' offensive line is so bad that the Chargers are still generating a ton of pressure. Like, Kirk Cousins was on the move. Now, he ended up lighting them up eventually, but unless it's just... I just, especially if it's a rookie, I just think it's going to be a great situation to use the Chargers defense. After that, I have New Orleans, Indianapolis this week. I think it's a decent spot for them. Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and Jacksonville. Indy, pretty decent at getting to the passer so far this year.
I was actually pulling that up. I was trying to see the highest pressure rates to see what they were.
And the other part of it, too, is you mentioned, Stafford's going to sling it. It'd be sort of the case to use Minnesota's defense this week, too. Just Minnesota's defense is far worse than Indianapolis, is that if you're going to face 55, 60 pass attempts in a game, just a lot of opportunities to score fantasy points.
It is, and that's always going to be an opportunity. That's why I actually for a second there was considering Pittsburgh a little bit higher, but yeah, I'm 11. That's a decent spot. The fact that CJ Stroud's been as great as he's been. So Dallas Cowboys. Which one were you looking at that you were going back for when you're talking about before that to get after the quarterback?
Indy 7. They got to Lamar. They were just chasing Lamar around. I know.
I wonder if that was a game. I was curious about that to see if that was continuing, but they're 25th on the year. I wonder if that was just a 1 week thing.
Yeah, if it's a 1 week thing, if they can get to Lamar, I think they shouldn't have too many problems getting to Stafford.
Stafford, I don't know. Stafford would get it out quicker.
Maybe, but Stafford's also going to throw 3 times as much as Lamar did.
That is also true.
So
I will give you that point.
You got to keep them passing in those situations.
It's like tennis. We're going back and forth here.
We are. Cleveland at number 8.
By the way,
you like?
Sorry,
tennis?
I was going to say the Cleveland Browns at 5th, pressure rate 40.6%, all the way down to 25th is the Colts at 30.4. There's a 10% gap between 5th and 25th.
That's
So,
actually
that's not a huge gap.
That's actually more than a 10% gap. It's actually a 25% gap.
Well,
Or
10%.
sorry, a 33%
points.
gap.
Yes, you heard. Yeah, 10 percentage points. Sorry.
Jacksonville against Atlanta, I would have them higher, but I think that Atlanta's just going to continuously run. Like, it'd be better if Ritter channeled his inner Sam Howell and just threw the ball to the other team 4 times. He's not accurate enough to throw to the other team is the problem.
There's actually, I was gonna say, there's actually some interceptions that haven't happened for Ritter so far this season. But
you know why?
Again,
because
the
they're
volume
nowhere
play doesn't
near.
even make it there.
They're nowhere near anyone. He just throws it behind his receiver, which inevitably is behind the defender too.
Which is to say, like, don't worry about defenses against them. Is it supposed to rain? Remember how messy that field gets, though. So, like, is it supposed to rain in Wembley this weekend? That'd be interesting to see.
It's not at Wembley anymore, is it? I thought it was at the Hotspur Stadium.
This week is Wembley.
Oh, is it? Yeah, the Wembley.
This week
Stadium.
is Wembley.
I think that I think that was more the first few London games. I think they figured out the turf issue.
They improved it.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember the very
So it's
first
not like the
game
dredges of the swamps flooding onto the field in Washington like it used to be.
Exactly. You're not just getting instead of like going to the sewer system, all the piss and shit would just come down, somehow go up to the upper bowl, and then leak down onto the field. Sloppy scene.
Yeah, the next week, their road game next week is at Tottenham.
Yeah, Tottenham, Hotspurs. I don't know. One of those two. I don't follow the Premier League. I just worry about the turf in these stadiums. But yeah,
Governor.
The first few games. I mean, I feel like the London games have been a lot more high scoring the past few years than when we initially had it. And I do think a lot of that has to do with the turf change. Like when they had them legitimately playing on a soccer pitch, like that grass is not built for 380-pound men to be digging their hands and feet into. It just ripped up and they couldn't run.
I know. Well, that actually happened to Jordan Love with that one play. Like, if his back foot didn't slip, he might have actually completed that busted play.
Oh, the flea flicker play?
Yeah, where he slipped and he fumbled and he slipped backwards. I thought he was going to still pull it off, but his foot got no footing in that one.
Well, look how much when they tried to tinker around with the turf in the Super Bowl and how poorly that turned out.
Oh, God.
Like, that was reminiscent of the early London games.
That's true. So there you go.
So yeah, that's the reason that they.
So you're telling me the turf is better? Is basically what you're getting at.
It has been better. I don't know if I listen. I'm not the groundskeeper at Wembley. I don't know, but based on what I've seen the past few years, it has been a lot better in actual NFL turf. They're no longer playing football on putting greens.
Groundskeeper Mayo.
Yeah. I have to fire up that Scottish accent and I'll be all good to go. Play in the Listeners League on DraftKings, Jake. You go do that. All of you out there as well. And League Safe. Download the League Safe app. You can get that link down in the description. There is a free game every single week. It's just 10 picks, like more or less, who throws for the most yards. And it's completely free to play. You just need to download the League Safe app. And there's $1,000 in the prize pool if you come inside the top 4 for the week. So it's like 400, 300, 200, 100. Listen, if you don't want to deposit your money on the internet, I completely understand that. But this is a way where you can play for free and win money. So check out the League Safe app. All right. Your rankings will be coming out when?
Tuesday night at midnight. I just realized you can't even see like the football on the bottom of this fantasy shirt the entire show. But anyway, yeah. Tuesday night at midnight like normal.
I just thought you were a big wizard enthusiast.
No, it's
You're
a fantasy football. That's the whole joke. It's a wizard on top of a unicorn.
It doesn't look like a joke. I can't see the joke. It just looks like you're a big on fantasy in general, the genre.
There you go. Fantasy football.
There we are. At All In Kid
Wizard unicorns.
on the X. You can find all my rankings down in the description right now. They're all completely updated because you watch me update them live as we go. Now they are live for the viewing public to go check out. All right? We'll have Ryder Cup and then the spread show, then the best bet show, and then the DraftKings show, and a whole lot of show. And if any news breaks, I'll have updates on the YouTube channel, so make sure you're subscribed to Mayo Media Network. Okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!